Welcome Libra to your high voltage Mars square Pluto deep dive video from the 22nd of May through to the 30th, one of astrology's most turbulent, powerful and challenging planetary influences reaches an absolute climax on the 26th, and on the screen is the event chart from a purely Libran perspective. I'm going to unpack this for you to help you to navigate this next 10-day period the best you can as far as your energy, work, relationships, and finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. So Mars rules two zodiac signs and Pluto one. They're the co-rulers of the very intense sign of Scorpio. But Mars is the sole domiciliary ruler of the sign of Aries. And here he's very much about action, assertion, can create a degree of drama, certainly very much about our identity, our self, our ego, if you like. But also Mars here can be very assertive. It can be about our desires. It can be about our willpower. It can be about our preservation. And in a most extreme sense, it can be where we need to fight for survival. Pluto, the sole ruler of the sign of, the sole modern ruler of the sign of Scorpio, very much about transformation, can be about power, and it can be about obsession, but it can also be about the things that we can't quite see, and that is its influence over the underworld. What about their location on the screen in the two fixed signs of Taurus for Mars and Aquarius for Pluto? Well, fixed energy has an appreciation of continuity. It's not really wanting drama or change. It's wanting to go about things in a steady Eddie manner. But Mars in Taurus is a more considered energy. It's a more patient energy than its rulership of Aries. And it has got a great awareness of the need for security, stability, and an appreciation of the more material plane. So that can be possessions, it can be money. But Mars also can be about instant gratification, particularly in its rulership of Scorpio, which is much more subterranean than Aries. Here, it's a steaming influence that desires, but not necessarily obviously. And for you personally, Mars is in your eighth house, which is an echo of that scorpionic energy. But Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, Pluto is very much about the collective, but it's also in the sign of where we're connected, community. And Pluto is a lot to do with the fast changes that are going on in terms of robotics, automation, and artificial intelligence, because in the air sign of Aquarius, which is very much to do with progression, we're replacing the way we used to do things. So it can be revolutionary in its own way. But for you, it's in the fifth house. The fifth house can be about where you showcase your talent, your charisma, your flair. It can be about your love life. It can be about your children's activities if you have them. So what do we get with Mars square Pluto for you in these houses? Well, I think we do get a smouldering intensity. If there is someone that you're drawn towards at the moment, you may find that person almost impossible to ignore. Now, that could really make your pulse race if that's what you're looking for. But say it isn't, you're not necessarily available or particularly drawn towards some kind of raunchy sexual connection, which may have some kind of obsessive dimension to it. Well, Mars in the eighth house could see thinking very carefully about your long-term resources. It could be about shared assets, and maybe in a long-standing relationship, if one of you does want to use those resources in a different way, a power battle could play out particularly over this next 10 days because each of you wants very different things. I feel that Mars in the eighth house in Taurus has a great need for impulsive moves, because that more action energy of Mars in the eighth house can point towards, say, instant gratification, but it could be the desire to splash out on a big ticket item. It's a very, very rare Libra that doesn't appreciate quality and a little bit of luxury. So that could come up. It could be an inner turbulence that's going on where you feel a bit conflicted about exactly which direction to go. For example, if you've got brilliant ideas that are very creative, Pluto in the fifth house, and you are wanting to change the way you work, but it would require some investment, that could see you quite unsure of exactly what to do, because part of you feels compelled. There's a lot of compulsion with this square, but not quite sure whether to make your move straight away. So to decode this, let's widen the lens. And the first thing to look at is your ruler, Venus. And Venus is in a very visible part of your chart, the 10th house. And the 10th house can be our connection to the world, but it can also be very much to do with creative talent. And if you're someone who works in fashion, has some kind of artistic role, you shape things through images, you're in a very rich period of time. And in fact, I could say with some certainty through June, it could be a pivotal month and a month of significant breakthroughs. But you also have the collective in the sign of Gemini, which shares your air triplicity. And that's really urging you to consider uh, changing things up, being much more spontaneous. And perhaps that's a clue of the conflict that might be going on, because the Sun, ironically, forges a marvelous link with Pluto, and also a marvelous link to the Moon in your sign, and also the path of fortune. So you have a grand air trine. The Moon in your sign is making you more conscious of your immediate emotional needs. The link to the Sun, very much about how you may expand your world, could be about travel, could be about higher information, could be about training, maybe even about higher education. And the passionate Pluto in that fifth house is just really realizing your talents, but that may require some kind of evolution or change. So might you be resisting something within yourself? So the planets are suggesting that it's very important to have, if need be, a very open conversation with people who know you well, who can help to clarify the direction you might take. But if you are feeling very restless, but you're in some ways feel caught on the horns of dilemma, maybe, for example, you're in a long-term romantic involvement that you're not actually enjoying, and it could feel controlling at some level, but you don't feel that you've got many options. But what's promoting a sense of extra restlessness through these next 10 days is there's a different way to live. And also, all these Gemini energies are really giving you lots of ideas and stimulation and excitement that if you did break out, just how different it could be. But can you break out? So, what are the good things we can take from this event? Well, Venus is right at the top of your chart and in a very strong link with Mars. If there is someone you want to collaborate with, and it is in a business situation, and it does have an artistic dimension, but you're both able to think about it in a very realistic way around the resources, you could make progress. But it will be very important to get clear information. Saturn in your seventh house for the next couple of years suggest any partnership can only be gone into with a great deal of care. Neptune on the seventh house can confuse things a little bit, but equally it can add to that brilliance that you may be manifesting. Saturn's also in an opposition to the Moon in your sign, so you may feel so conflicted that you can't quite make a decision. Now, that can be a Libran tendency. I have a Libran ascendant. Do you know, when I don't feel well, I find it so difficult to make decisions. When I feel strong, I can make them much more decisively. But also, if I'm not sure, I can really vacillate. It is a Libran tendency. So there could be a little bit of that going on for you. But I think most importantly, your ruler Venus is conflicted by Saturn, and the moon links back to Venus too. So we have a T square. So even if you have that hope of doing something that demonstrates your flair in a different way, if we're talking about hard cash, Mars in the eighth house, you need to proceed with caution. Just breaking free might on paper sound a good thing. It's going to need research. Also, the sun is in a T square with the North Node. Maybe your direction of travel over your obligations and work and physical health, and also with the South Node, where you may retreat. The things you know well that feel comfortable, but also perhaps are to do with just maintaining the status quo in that neat and tidy way, rather than doing something that is much more bold and challenging. So I think there's a lot to take on board here, but I want to stress that Mars square Pluto can give us enormous willpower to make changes that we really want. So, for example, if you're feeling utterly miserable in a relationship that's not working, don't believe that you can't make a decision just because it can be difficult to do so. If there is someone you're finding so intoxicatingly attractive and you feel there is a good vibe between you, don't let the potential for confusion of Neptune or resistance from Saturn in your seventh house stop you from going for it. If you have got a business idea that is very imaginative, again with Venus at the top of the chart, if you really feel it will work, trust your instincts. I'm going to summarize those four areas of energy, work, relationships, and finances next. But just to say, I've slashed the price of my personal horoscope reports. You can now get three for the price of one. And this enables you to order your personal forecast and draconic charts free, and you just pay for your life roadmap chart. That helps us to understand the patterns that are played out in our lives, get a much more intimate understanding of those energies, how to work with them future forwards, and the 12 months forecast, when to make moves, and the draconic chart looking at ourselves, life, and astrology in a different karmic way. If your North Node in your natal chart is not late in Pisces or early in Aries, your draconic chart can look very different, but it's incredibly powerful. Please check it out below. If you've yet to watch your Gemini season 1 month forecast, please see that on the screen. If you've yet to watch your Mars in Taurus 6 week forecast, please see that on the screen. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, it would be an absolute pleasure. Please check out my testimonials. I work with people the world over. And if you've yet to take advantage of your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning for your celestial pit stop, please do so below. Get your early day alerts. So to summarize, let's think about energy first of all. So if you are in a relationship where it feels controlling and it does quite honestly suck the joy out of you, and because of Saturn being in your seventh house of relationships and potentially the confusing energy of Neptune, you may feel truly conflicted. But I want you to know that you do have choices, Libra, and you can break free. But if you don't feel able to over this next 10 days, that's fine. You will do things when you're ready, not when the planets suggest you should do them. But if you do want to do something bright, different, and fresh, even in an existing relationship, one of the great ways to do that will be to travel or be more spontaneous, to break out, get away from those regular patterns. As far as your professional situation is concerned, I think you could do well if you're a creative, if you're doing something which helps you to showcase your talent. But just be aware that Venus is in a quincunx with Pluto, and therefore the ideas that you've got, they still need to work with for you in a practical way, which is the finance. But despite that quincunx, Mars actually supports Venus very strongly. So if you want to apply for a job that can help you to demonstrate that flair, and it is a completely different job, You do feel a bit conflicted because the job you have at the moment may be secure or familiar to you. This chart's looking exciting. I think when it comes to relationships generally, if you're wanting to do something that is fresh and different and a partner doesn't, you could find yourselves locking horns, but it doesn't need to be terminal. I think if you're single, the potential to be attracted to someone very mesmeric at the moment is extraordinarily high. But most of all, if you're in any dilemma which is drawing down your energy in and not a constructive way, I think that's what you should be thinking most of all about trying to exit from. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Libra. All the best and look forward to seeing you again soon.